All right, so let's take a look at how to get your measures of central tendency out of your graphing calculator, right? Um, and so to do that, much like our histograms, we've got to get all of our data into one list. Anytime we're going to use our calculators, we need to put all of our data into one list. Your calculator will do calculations in graph based on all of the data into one list. Okay, so we need to work on that. We've got here, sorry, I didn't talk about that, but here I collected just some number of contact information in one of my classes' cell phones, right? So just went through and got 14 people and asked them how many contacts they have in their phones. And now we're going to take a look at the average, the mean of the mean number of contacts in these 14 people's phones, and the median as well. Okay, so we need to get all these numbers into our graphing calculator. So fairly simple. All we're going to do is I'm going to clear out of this, go to Stat, and Edit. Choose one of your lists, right? If you have list 1 populated and you don't need it anymore and you want to use list 1, you can arrow up to list 1, hit clear, and hit enter. Don't hit delete because it will delete the entire list, okay? But we can hit clear, hit enter, and it clears out the whole list. Now we're ready to type in our data. Okay, if you need if you're completely aware of how to do this, then go ahead and start typing this in and hit enter. You can pause the video, and move it back to where I was showing the data to type everything in. But or you can type it in with me. The first person had 385 contacts in their phone, so see 385 and enter. Next person had 262, 415, 218. Just hitting enter every time you type in these numbers. 340, 285, 312, 24, 365, 263, 69, 107, and 300. Should have 14 data entries there. I see that we do because I'm on the next blank one, which is the 15th data entry. Okay? Now, we want to perform a statistical calculation. So we're going to quit out of this. We go to Stat and then Calc. We'll be in and out of this menu quite a bit. If you arrow over one more, these are where all of your statistical testing and your intervals that we're going to create later will be. Okay, but right now we've got one variable. We've measured one variable, which is the number of contacts in these people's phones, and we want to come up with the statistical calculations for that. So the first option is one variable stats. So if you hit enter, it's going to ask you what list to do it on, and so you want to make sure that you have list 1 populated. If you don't, you can always hit shift and the number 1, and it will populate list 1 for you. A frequency list, if we had data entries that we wanted to weight, like the previous video talking about weighted means, we could create those weights next to those data entries in lists 2 and make that our frequency list. Right now we don't have that. So we're ready to just calculate. Arrow down to calculate and hit enter, and boom, it's got everything for you. Okay. X bar, remember, is your X bar is your sample mean. So if we're just looking for the mean number of contacts, it's right here. So on average, these 14 people have about 242 contacts in their phone. Okay. You see the sum of the data. Okay, and then some of the data squared. Some of these other things get used later on in other calculations. We may not even see those numbers when they get used, but they get used other places. Now, as we'll learn next module, this is your sample standard deviation. This is your population standard deviation. This tells you how many data entries were there. And so always useful there to make sure that you have all the data entries in that you need. Okay. And then you might have to arrow down. So the next series of numbers here, the minimum data number was 24. That was the fewest text messages that people had. Q1 is a quartile. We haven't discussed that yet. But then if you arrow down is the median. And so that's our next measure of central tendency, right? So the median is 274. That means half of the 14 students had fewer than 274 contacts in their phone, and half had more than 274. And then you see Q3 there in the next one. Again, it's a quartile that it's something that we have not discussed yet. And then the maximum value is 415. Okay. Right now, we're just interested in this mean and the median, so the X bar and the median there. But that's how you use your calculator.